gown because I brought.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Professor Abuelaish. Welcome to Sky Lounge Prince in the heart of Antwerp for the conferral of the 2021 Honorary degree for General Merit. My name is Anke. I'll be your hostess this evening in this beautiful location. Finally. That's a word that's quite appropriate for this evening. In fact, this honorary degree for General Merit should have been awarded 1 year ago on the 2nd of April 2020. For reasons we are all familiar with, the ceremony wasn't able to go ahead. That's why we are so delighted that tonight is finally the night. Honorary Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish will shortly be teaching a masterclass titled Hatred is a Contagious Disease, Public Health Emergency Threat, and a Determinant of Health and Peace. During the masterclass, you can ask questions using the chat function on the YouTube channel. After the masterclass, there will be time for a Q&A session in which Professor Abuelaish will answer the questions you submitted. Then we will proceed to the conferral of the honorary degree. But first, I would like to give the floor to Rector Herman van Goetem, who will offer you all a warm welcome.
My dear colleagues and friends of the University of Antwerp, and dear colleagues, friends of Honorary Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish, I too would like to offer you a warm welcome. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, we postponed the conferral of our honorary degrees in April last year to the following year, which is now. And we are still in the middle of the pandemic, of course, but now we have learned just how much we can do online. My esteemed colleague Abuelaish, Your Excellency, Ambassador Johan Verkammen, from this panoramic view at the University of Antwerp, which offers a view on the entire world also there, I greet you there in the west in Ottawa, where you are now. Mr. Ambassador, ambassadors are go-betweens by their very definition, even during a pandemic. Thank you very much, Excellency, for your involvement. Thank you too to the staff. Ladies and gentlemen, in a short while, right after the masterclass, Ambassador Verkammen will present the University of Antwerp's decoration and diploma of Dr. Honoris Causa for general merit to Professor Abuelaish. Or should I say Dr. Abuelaish? Izzeldin is both of them. But above all, he is a role model, a builder of bridges, a bringer of peace on a global scale. Dr. Abuelaish was born into a Palestinian family living in a refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. At the age of 15, over the summer, Izzeldin went to work on a farm in Israel, owned by a Sephardic Jewish family. And this intercultural contact taught him that Jews and Palestinians, that all of us in this world, are really just fellow human beings. Conflicts are largely about ignorance. Coming together and mutual understanding are the keys to peace and reconciliation. This is only possible when you get to know each other. The first thing you have to do is listen to each other with an open mind, without prejudice. Dr. Abuelaish's open mind goes back to that fundamental insight. Izzeldin studied medicine in Cairo and then specialized in gynecology over the course of a long journey which took him from Israel to Milan, Brussels and Harvard, and then he returned to the Gaza. There he married in 1987. Izzeldin and his wife Nadia had 8 children. Izzeldin then became one of the very few Palestinians to travel to Israel every day from the Gaza Strip. And in 1997 he started working as a gynecologist in Israeli hospitals, thereby establishing day-to-day contact between Jews and Palestinians. During the Israeli attack on Gaza in December 2008 and January 2009, Dr. Abuelaish reported live from his apartment in Gaza on Israeli TV's Channel 10 about daily life in Gaza. His contact with the press gave the world insight into everyday life in Gaza during the Israeli operation that lasted 23 days. On the 16th of January, the Israeli army fired 2 targeted missiles at his apartment. 3 of Izzeldin's 8 children and 1 of his nieces were killed instantly. By telephone, Izzeldin reported what had just happened live on Israeli TV, and a 5-minute video of this coverage posted to YouTube became an iconic clip about war, death and grief. War and violence seem to be the norm in the world. Today we are hearing about Myanmar and Tigris, and there are so many conflicts that don't even make it to the press. How can we stop the spiral of war and violence? How can we make the weapons fall silent and make a way for consultation, reconciliation and peace? Dr. Abuelaish gave a right answer to that question by refusing to allow feelings of hatred and revenge to take over, even after losing 3 own children. On the contrary, even more than before, he has become a herald of peace and reconciliation. And this is what makes Izzeldin Abuelaish one of the greats, the very greats, up there with likes of Nelson Mandela, who choose to respond to their immense personal suffering with messages of love, reconciliation and peace. And that is why the University of Antwerp would like to confer this honorary degree for general merit on Dr. Abuelaish. You Shall Not Hate is a title of a book he wrote and which has been published all over the world. Izzeldin also founded Daughters for Life, an organization that provides scholarships to girls from the Middle East who have great academic potential but who lack the financial means to attend university. I am excited and proud to announce that the University of Antwerp, together with the Cusanus Foundation, will finance up to 4 of these scholarships. More of this later today, more news even. First, I would like to give the floor to Professor Guy Hubens, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences.
Dear Dr. Abuelaish, dear Mr. Ambassador, dear Rector, dear colleagues and friends, dear students. It is not very often that you get a chance to meet someone who really makes a difference. A difference not in an emotional or romantic way, but a difference in the way you look towards your profession or even towards life. I believe that today is such a day, as we are lucky and honored to welcome Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish at our university and Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences for this honorary degree. I cannot and will not try to imagine the personal horror he and his family have suffered. Yet Dr. Abuelaish simply decided, I shall not hate. Instead of being led by hatred or revenge, he decided to choose the opposite path, a path of empathy, understanding, yes, even love. With the instruments at his disposal, he tries to make a difference. And these instruments were clearly combined in his professional background, medicine. By treating both Palestine and Israeli women with the same high professional standards and with passion and compassion, and by working in difficult circumstances but in close collaboration with Palestine and Israeli colleagues, he has been able to build bridges. Professor Marek Glazerman, Professor Emeritus of Obstetrics and Gynecology and Head of Gender Medicine at the Sackler School of Medicine, Tel Aviv University, described it perfectly. He said that you, Izzeldin, uses medicine as a tool to understand people's problems and to help them to live together. And it is indeed this point of view towards our beautiful profession that this faculty indeed tries to introduce into the minds of our students. And I really do hope they are virtually present in large numbers this evening. It is indeed our sincere belief that you students, as future medical doctors or healthcare workers, really can make a difference for our society. A society which, as everyone knows right now, is under tension. Unfortunately, a society where the I threatens to become more important than the we. Even in our immediate surroundings, we see examples of this evolution every day. I refer, for example, to the hatred mails, yes, even death threats the COVID experts from our faculty receive on a daily basis. The rude discussions and newspaper letters between followers of the COVID restrictions and those who tensely oppose these restrictions. In this social climate, it is so important that you, as healthcare workers, can blow a different whistle. It even is our moral obligation, I think. It is the aim of this faculty not only to pass along theoretical knowledge, but also to provide you with the tools to combat the future challenges that you will encounter during your career and further life. And these challenges will be numerous and impressive. Whether it will be in the combat against this and future pandemics, climate changes, poverty, intolerance of any kind, prove yourselves to be good doctors. And if you ask me, what is a good doctor? Well, it is not necessarily the one with the most patients, the highest income, the most publications, or highest funding capabilities. No, for me, it is the one who really cares. And you, Dr. Abuelaish, you really care. And therefore, in my opinion, you truly are a great doctor and an example for all our students to be admired. To paraphrase Joe Biden, you show us not the way by the example of power, but by the power of your example. Dear Dr. Abuelaish, Izzeldin, it is my great privilege and honor to welcome you in our Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, and I invite you to give your masterclass, which I'm sure will be a landmark in the history of this faculty.
Thank you so much. It's my great honor and a pleasure to speak to you, because stories are not just to read stories. Stories is about practicing and living by these stories and to learn from them. I will speak today about the subject of hatred and deconstructing hatred as a contagious disease and the public health emergency, a threat and a determinant of health and peace. So why do we need to study hatred? And what is hatred? And what are the triggers, causes, underlying factors for the development of hatred? And the medical model of hatred. We are living in a world that is dynamic, it's changing, the challenges are changing. It's not the world we used to live in. So it urges from all of us to think around, and what are we doing, and what is going around. And my interest in hatred, as a gynecologist, I never thought to be interested in public health or in the subject of hatred. But this interest stems back from my life experience as a Palestinian refugee who lived in teeming, abject poverty and suffering, all kinds of suffering. And after what I experienced, the people were expecting me to be drowning in hatred. The Palestinians, they don't hate anyone. They want to live as anyone else, and they value life, and they appreciate life. But Palestinians are tested on a daily basis. No one on earth is tested as the Palestinians. That's why when I wrote my book after my daughters were killed, the people were expecting me to be full of hatred. My answer to them and my daughters' answers was, I shall not hate. It's not with hatred, because people, they think kindness, tolerance, resilience, empathy, and passion are signs of weakness. But they don't know that they need a lot of strength and courage to be resilient and kind than being violent and killer and brutal to others. And when we speak about the determinants of health in life, health, freedom, justice, equality, peace, equity, education, everything, it has a context. And it depends on who you are and where you are. For the Palestinian who is living in the Gaza Strip or the West Bank or any part of the world, they are seeking freedom. So that's why we need to think of it in the context. So why to study hatred? And these days, that's what we need. A humanity, and the world is at risk. Now, more than any time before, with the pandemic, with the COVID pandemic, where we lost security and safety. And we are focused these days only, and just only, on the biological impact of COVID. How many mortalities, how many morbidities, how many tests, and the vaccine. Even in the vaccine, we politicized it. The access to the vaccine, where we think not to leave anyone behind, but we are leaving billions of people behind. We politicized health, where health is a human equalizer, it's a stabilizer, it's socializer, and it's harmonizer, and most important, it's a human right. And also we see it, the increasing scale of civil conflicts around the world, the incitement from political leaders who are inciting and using fear and fear-mongering against ethnic minorities or against other religions, other people. The racism, which is very contagious and it's spreading. The discrimination. So hatred is an urgent threat to public health. These challenges we are facing, they are man-made. It's not from God. It's people who are doing it. So what can we do to unmade it and to take responsibility and to expose these threats if we want to face them with courage? So the definition of hatred, what is hatred? They used to think of hatred as a negative emotion. It's a feeling. And there is no consensus on the definition of hatred. I started to think of it as a medical doctor. Hatred which involves dehumanization of the other. Hatred for me, I started to think and to explore it. We should never accept it as emotion. Hatred is a contagious, chronic, destructive disease, and it's the result of exposure. No one is born full of hatred. I can make people to hate me if I exposed them to harm, to hurt them. And that's the problem. Some people, they escape responsibility by blaming others of hatred, not asking themselves, what did we do to trigger hatred in these victims? So that's what I came up with in my research, where I am mostly focused on this topic about hatred. Hatred is extreme and it's severe. It's a disease. It's a chronicity and the time frame, and it's the result of exposure. And of course, it's destructive and contagious. And that's my main, really innovative and the creative definition of hatred that I am promoting in our world and among all of the people in the academic field. So the World Health Organization defines violence as the intentional use of physical force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or a community. That's violence. So we need, and even the WHO recognized violence as a public health issue. In 1996, the 49th World Health Assembly adopted the resolution recognizing and declaring violence as a public health issue. And violence is linked to fear-mongering, to racism. So hatred also, that's what I published. Hatred is a public health issue and a contagious disease. So when we start to deconstructing hatred as a chronic disease and public health, we need to have overview of the current knowledge. What is going on? What do we know about hatred? And the relationship between hatred and violence. Because hatred, violence, fear, racism, they are mutually interconnected and interlinked together. And hatred, of course, and health. And this is the diagnostic map that we used: hatred and the harmful effects of hatred, and the outcomes and the impact of hatred and the origin of hatred. And that's what we need. When we see someone who is impacted by any disease, what do? We take the history. We ask the patient, what made him sick? Not to blame the patient. Everything has a history. So I encourage anyone, when you have someone who is violent or full of hatred, what made him? Ask 10 times why. Not to blame, he is full of violence or he is full of hatred. So we need to ask, and we need to use the diagnostic tree, not to blame, but to take responsibility and to have accurate diagnosis, because the truth is the only way to help us. As Jesus said in Gospel, seek the truth, and the truth will set you free. So we need to have the truth. So the epidemiology of hatred and the causal relationship, it's like toxicity. When someone is exposed to toxic materials, what happened to the human body? So it's the result of harm, physical, psychological, neglect, financial, sexual, and there is an agent which are non-biological, the environment, the idiopathic. That's what is going. So hatred can spread as contagious through hearing, through practicing, and through insulting, through humiliating, or what we call hated crime and hate speech. And even the hate groups in these days. In 1999, just in the States, there were about 500 hate groups. In 2018, they are approaching 1,000. So imagine the hate groups in our world, and what are they doing, and what is the impact? And mostly, there is a political agenda behind it. So we need, in order to understand the ecological model of hatred, to use the ecological model at the individual level, the family, the community, and the societal. And that's what we use, the exposure to harm, then the hatred and the violence, the relationship between them, and the triggers for this hatred. And violence and hatred, we realized that violence is a public health issue, and violence is contagious, and it's a cause and consequence of hatred. So the same for hatred, it's a public health issue, It's a contagious, and it's a disease, and it's a determinant of health. So if we want to treat hatred, we need to deal with violence and the causes behind this violence. So the causes of hatred, the etiology, and this is really ecological model at the individual, from poverty, from violence, from all aspects of hatred that impact the individual, the community, the relationship, and of course, the international, at the international level. These days, I take one example these days with COVID, with the racism and discrimination. We started to call COVID-19, it's the Chinese virus, the blue virus. This is a kind of racism which provokes incitement and hatred. We should never be trapped in this. And mostly it's for a political agenda. So this is for hatred, the human being when they are exposed, and even at the individual level, the environmental factors. When anyone is living in teeming poverty, deprived of their freedom, of access to healthcare, of opportunities to work. Take, for example, the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, who have been locked down under complete siege from 2006 till now. And the world is watching. It's unjust. Where are we going? What are you doing? What do you expect from people in the Gaza Strip, where the Palestinian people there? In spite of that, they are determined to succeed and to achieve their goals. And even just take one thing from Gaza Strip. It has the highest number of PhD candidates in the Middle East. The Palestinian people, as I said, they are people like others. They have dreams, they have hopes, they have plans, and they succeeded. And they will continue to succeed. And they believe in their rights. But they need the world to help them, because Palestinians' freedom is linked to everyone's freedom in this world. As these days, I am not free from the impact of COVID as long as others are not free. So you see, COVID equalized between all of us. Why not to live in this world as equal? And this is the contagious mode of transmission. If someone is exposed to harm, what happens to the human body to react to it? And of course, depends upon the incubation period, upon also the quality and the quantity of the harm. If it is a heavy dose of poison, of harm, of course, hatred immediate will explode and to impact the human being. And it can be cumulative for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, with the cumulative impact of a humiliation and suffering. What do we expect? It will be chronic and cumulative. So hatred, even contagious, it can spread directly to the closed circuit through speaking, through watching, through hearing, or distant for anyone who is watching what is happening. So the impact on health and well-being. Number one, it disturbs the homeostasis, the balance of the human body. Imagine for a moment someone who did harm to you, a real harm, and to pass in front of you. What happens to you? Of course, the first thing, you are here but not here. The adrenaline, the heart rate, the respiration, you start, of course, the impact on you. And it has a multi-system effect. The physical, the mental, the psychological, spiritual, and health. You are here and you become blind. It paralyzes the human body. So that's why the pathology, we need to study the pathophysiology of hatred. And that's what I started. We need to study the pathophysiology of hatred as a disease, a disturbance of homeostasis, the balance, and the equilibrium. So hatred, of course, leads to stress. And the stress, as you all know, it has an impact on the immunity of the human body, the cardiovascular system, the endocrinology, the immunology, the metabolism, and it can lead up to cancer. And the impact here, the causes, of course, disturbance, and they did many studies One of the studies which has been done, just people to listen to hate speech. And they took samples of the saliva. After hearing the hate speech, what happened? The cortisol levels, they increased. So it has an impact. Then another study, of course, that they did for people to see some photos. To take some photos in the brain. Photos of people they hate. Once they saw the photos of some people they hate, and they did an MRI, what happens? It changes in the brain, and they found a hatred circuit in the brain. That's what strengthens my faith of hatred as a contagious disease, and it's a disease. It disturbs the whole body of the human body. So we need to think of a prevention. What can we do as doctors, as health professionals, politicians? As I said, hatred has been studied, of course, by philosophers, psychologists, sociologists. It's time to study hatred in a comprehensive, holistic, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and comprehensive collaborative approach as a contagious disease, to bring all of them together. And my intent, and that's what I'm planning, to establish the Global Institute for the study of socio-endemic diseases, not the biological diseases. COVID is a biological, but we are waiting to see the social impact of COVID. And that's the pandemic after COVID. We are waiting the mental health, the financial, the social. We are not focused. We are these days focused on just the biological, as in times of war. We focus in times of war on the casualties and those who are dead. This is not all of the war. Most important, what is after war? The people who are lost, the wounds in the hearts, in the minds, in the spirits, the people who lost loved ones. What are we going to do with them? That they need years to rehabilitate and to reconcile what happened. So that's what we need to study it. So the prevention and management, treating people, and we are not treating diseases, we are treating human beings. The doctor who is focused on treating disease is not what do we need. This is a human being and the environment and the context in which he lives. So the social innovation, a novel solution to a complex social problem that is more effective, efficient, sustainable, or just than current solutions. Social innovation is the process of developing and deploying effective solutions to challenging, often systemic social and environmental issues. And I think these days we need social innovation to face the world's challenges, because the pattern of war, the pattern of education, of trade, everything in our life is changing. So the role of public health sector. So we need, number one, investing in hatred prevention. How? Number one, primary prevention, of course, with the early stages to predict the disease. COVID, we were supposed to start early prevention, not to wait till we have COVID. Then secondary prevention by screening the people. And the third, the tertiary prevention, by doing rehabilitation. And this is what is going on, bridging the gap. What do we know about hatred and what is needed to be known? So our efforts as health professionals and other people from multiple disciplines to work on filling the gap in the research and the knowledge of hatred. Number one, research and education. So are there ways to mitigate the health effects of hatred? Of course, there are ways. And how can we develop a research agenda exploring the health effects of hatred, mitigation, and the prevention, screening and the prevention opportunities? Don't wait till the people they hate. You can screen and find the locations and the communities where they have suffering. They are deprived, ethnic minorities, people under oppression, under occupation, under suffering. Marginalized groups try to predict them and to intervene as early as possible. So what can be done? Detecting and preventing the high-risk individuals, communities and neighborhoods, people who are socially marginalized and challenged on daily life. And you need always, as I said, to ask why. Why are they suffering? Why are they challenged? Who is behind their suffering? Mostly, it's structural, systematic, and cultural violence. Will we ever eliminate emerging infectious disease? As any infectious disease, we hope by the end of 2021, we will overcome COVID as we finished with other pandemics. So the hatred mitigation to help individuals already suffering from the hatred through, of course, coaching, counseling, support, and to manage it and to reduce the hatred. The most important, the triggers of hatred and the causes to prevent it. You can't, in medicine, I can't treat a bleeding patient. I have to stop the bleeding first, and then I can continue. So there is a cure for the disease of hate. That's what I published in the British Medical Journal. So conclusion and recommendation. Hatred is infectious and spreads or crosses barriers. Hatred is the result and the result of exposure. Hatred is a disease, not an emotion. Hatred is a public health issue. Hatred is a determinant of health, and most important, hatred depends on who you are and where you are and what are you facing, the environment in which you live, not the individual, because as I said, no one is born with hatred. It's nurtured, it's not by nature. To redefine hatred in a comprehensive and holistic way, including physical, mental, spiritual, and social. Hatred, as I said, is induced or made as a result of exposure. The hatred is manifested as a contagious disease. The antidote of hatred: awareness, knowledge, education, resilience, tolerance, kindness, and most important, forgiveness. Forgive yourself from this destructive disease. So hatred is not our destiny, as COVID is not our destiny, and should never be eternal, but contained and prevented or eradicated. Freedom, health, well-being, justice, equality, and peace are our destiny. So it's time for all of us to come together, because one can't do everything. Each of us can do something, and to look around and to think of others. We need to have a world which is full or pandemic of justice, equality, equity, and the freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzeldin. Wow, what a powerful and wonderful message. What important conclusions you gave us in this masterclass. As we told in the introduction, we will pass quickly to some questions we received from the audience which was numerous present this evening. And first of all, I would extend congratulations from colleagues from other Flemish universities. So they were also following this masterclass, and they wanted explicitly to congratulate you with this occasion. So I have a few questions. First of all, a very practical one. When will your book be available in Arabic?
Has been published in 23 languages, including Arabic language. And I hope the publisher, I was planning to go back to Palestine and to reprint it and to distribute it in the world. It was published by Qatar Foundation, but I don't know what is happening now, so I have the rights. And if you find a publisher, I waive the rights, all of my rights. I want someone to take the responsibility to spread it everywhere, because it's not a book about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It has a universal, a human message of hope. And even these days, It's taught in many universities and part of their curriculum as for positive psychology. So I will do my best really to find it in Arabic and to be published in Arabic again.
Okay. Another one. I believe the world needs more than ever human leaders like yourself instead of political leaders. How would you approach people who politicize and use hatred?
Of course, I use to speak with these people. I am not blaming them. First, we need to find a common ground of understanding, to find a way of communicating what do we want to achieve by the end. We are, as people here in this world, we need to have a sense of purpose. Where are we going? And not to think of myself. We need to think of all ourselves. And really, the people are fed up with politics. And nothing is more important than medicine, health professionals who are messengers of humanity. As I said, we need to humanize, not to politicize. We need to equalize, not to disequalize, not to include, to be inclusive, not to be exclusive of others. And that's what do we do, the message of health professionals. You are working in a hospital as a dean of school medicine, and you are a surgeon. Go to the department where you are working. You have patients from different backgrounds in Belgium, different names, ethnic majorities, minorities and majorities, but you treat them equally. And that's the message we want to take it outside, where the people to start to practice it, to deal with people as equal and as a human.
That's so true, and that's perhaps the most important message of tonight, and for our future colleagues, our students, remember these words. I have another one. You were talking about identifying high-risk individuals in your studies. How will you do that? Or how can you do that?
I started the study, even I did it, and I hope soon, maybe in a month, I will publish a paper where we developed a scale, a medical model of a scale to measure hatred as a disease. So I collected a 1,200 sample size from the Gaza Strip, where they are under stress, and all of the challenges you think of, it's the Palestinian people where they are facing in the Gaza Strip. So we know where are these risky groups and the risk individuals, because individuals are linked to community, to the family, and that's what we need, the ecological model, because the individual is not living in isolation from the family, from the community, and the national and the international. So we can find, and I am sure you live in Belgium, you know where these marginalized groups, you can find them. We know them, and it's our efforts to search for them. We should not wait for the individual to come to us. We should go there to explore and to do screening, and we have the health indicators where they can indicate which groups of people are suffering.
Okay. A question linked to the previous one. To what extent do physiological mechanisms related to hatred correspond to the ones related to fear? Has this ever been studied at all?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to explore, even to learn more about it. I found out that fear-mongering, violence, racism, and hatred, they are interconnected in a vicious circle and mutually interlinked, inseparable from each other. So they have the pathophysiological impact as hatred. Fear, and in particular, fear-mongering, that is used to promote a political agenda,
Absolutely.
It's more dangerous. So we can avoid it. So I agree with you. Fear, it has a pathophysiological effect.
Okay. And a final one, a very up-to-date one. What is your vaccine against hatred?
Really, of course, vaccine. What do we mean by vaccine? To immunize. What are we doing these days for the last 1 year? What was our preventive measures to prevent the spread of COVID? What did we do within the last year? We realized on public health issues, just isolation, separation, and the mask, sanitization. That's what we did. So I believe the vaccine against hatred, number one, to prevent the triggers, and that's what we need. Number two, to immunize the people with justice, with equality, with resilience, with tolerance, with kindness and empathy, and that's what is needed. That's about awareness, about education, because once you know, do we have a vaccine against smoking? We don't have.
We don't.
So the same, we have these, you know, plasters, anything, but we need to immunize the people through the awareness and knowledge, and to prevent also the exposure, and to set up rules, regulations for the use and the spread of smoking. So I believe through education, developing curriculums in schools to start as early as possible, at universities, about the impact of hatred and the triggers of hatred, because there is difference between the one who knows and the one who doesn't. Once we know, knowledge is the light, which can guide us in times of darkness. Knowledge is vital to spread it, and this is our responsibility as health professionals, and of course in the different fields.
I couldn't agree more, and I thank you very, very much for the masterclass and the discussion we had afterwards. Izzeldin, it was a pleasure for me to have you here, and we will continue with the ceremony. I hope we can see each other in the near future. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The honorary degree will shortly be awarded to Professor Abuelaish. But before we get to that, there is some more good news. The University of Antwerp, the CUSA Foundation and Zonta Antwerp Fund are entering into a special partnership agreement with the Daughters for Life Foundation set up by Professor Abuelaish. I would like to invite Director Van Goetem and the representatives of the other two partners to say a few words and officially launch the partnership.
Dear friends, it is for me a honor to introduce you to some people who are ready to support the Foundation Daughters of Life. Firstly, I would like to introduce to you Ivan Dekkers of the Cusanus Foundation. This is an extraordinary moment. We are now working together with the NGO and service club Zonta Club and with the Cusanus Foundation to establish this new program concerning Daughters for Life. Thank you very much for helping us together with the university with this foundation, Daughters for Life. Dr. Abuelaish gives this way young women from the Middle East opportunity to pursue higher education, to attend university. And I hope that within this and a short period also women from the Middle East will come to Antwerp to study here at this university. And thanks to the new fund, our university will award 2 scholarships. I would like to give now the floor to Martien de Klerk of Zonta Club and then to Ivan Dekkers of Cusanus.
Thank you very much, Rector. Ladies and gentlemen, in the context of the global vision and mission of Zonta International, with the focus mainly on empowerment of women, The newly established Fonds Zonta Antwerpen Foundation offers a one-year grant to the beautiful project of Daughters for Life that aims to offer opportunities to young women from the Middle East, a rather sadly and highly affected area. We offer opportunities to come to the University of Antwerp to study and to develop themselves into ambassadors of great, strong, powerful, and healthy values, following the guidelines and the recommendations that Professor Dr. Abuelaish has given us just now in this very impressive masterclass. I wish to thank him very heartily. Thank you.
Dear Dr. Abuelaish, Your Excellency the Ambassador, dear Rector van Goethem, professors, guests of the University of Antwerp, and online attendees. It is an extremely great honor for me to be representing the Cusanus Foundation at this wonderful ceremony, during which Dr. Abuelaish is honored with a degree honoris causa. And I have the feeling that these words, honoris causa, are very much appropriate today. And we sincerely would like to congratulate Dr. Abuelaish on the occasion. The Cusanus Foundation was created by my late father. His aim was to encourage a peaceful dialogue between religions and cultures. He chose the name as a reference to the medieval philosopher Nicholas of Cusa, and it's inspired by his book De Pace Fidei, written in 1453, during the religious war between Catholics and Muslims, dividing the Eastern and Western world. The title De Pace Fidei indicates the author's dream that is still very relevant today, to establish peace between religions and cultures. This foundation was my father's reaction to the sad loss of two of his brothers. One died at the age of 18 at the end of World War II, the other in Algeria as a martyr of religious and political extremism in 1994. Like Dr. Abuelaish, we believe that peace, hope, and forgiveness are the only true answers to violence and hate inflicted upon our families. So by funding Dr. Abuelaish's organization Daughters for Life, we want to contribute also to the education of young people in the Middle East, especially women, as an antidote for hatred and revolution, to quote Dr. Abuelaish's own words. This was exactly what my uncle also did in Algeria for 30 years. He helped young women to go to school, often by convincing their fathers. And in doing so, as a Catholic priest in a Muslim country, he gently guided a generation towards peace and harmony between religions. So, Dr. Abuelaish, on behalf of the Cusanus Foundation, I want to thank you for your continuous effort for peace. And I would like to congratulate you once again with the title of Doctor Honoris Causa. It's an honor you most certainly deserve. We are proud it will be given to you by the rector, Dr. Herman van Goethem, the rector of the University of Antwerp, which is our beloved native city. Thank you.
Dr. Abuelaish, I am honored to ask you, will you make this great partnership agreement officially by signing it? Thank you all very much. The selected students will start in the academic year 223, and I am really looking forward to meet them.
Me too.
Thank you so much. Really, it's very touching to see how pain and suffering brings us together in memory of your brothers and the loved ones, to keep them alive. And through the efforts you are doing, and that's what I believe, my daughters, they will never die. They are alive. And that's the oath. I gave it to them. At the same moment I saw them killed in front of me, I said to them, I will never give up. I will never forget you. I will keep you alive. But with which means? It's not the bullet or the shell. There are stronger means. It's the kind, courageous words and the strong deeds, and with kindness. And that's what are we doing and symbolizing today. Thank you so much for keeping our loved ones alive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Abuelaish, for these warm words. Mr. Ambassador, once again on behalf of the University of Antwerp, I would like to thank you for agreeing to host this ceremony. The embassy's cooperation has helped us to ensure the success, and we very much appreciate that. Would you like to say a few words maybe to our audience? Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Rector and distinguished guests. First of all, let me say that it was great for me to see this beautiful view of Antwerp in the beginning of this program. Unfortunately, we don't have a window on Ottawa in the back of us, but I can assure you it's a beautiful sunny day in Ottawa as well today. But thank you. It's a great honor for me, of course, to be involved, to be part of this ceremony. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Professor Izzeldin Abuelaish for that, because it was actually his idea, his initiative to involve me, because he insisted very kindly that he wanted to symbolically show his attachment to Belgium. Of course, not only because the University of Antwerp is located in Belgium, because also of his, as he explained to me, his long-standing professional and academic and friendship ties to Belgium. And Professor Abuelaish is really a friend of Belgium. Actually, it's some years ago, it's the Belgian Parliament who nominated him, proposed him for the Nobel Prize. And by doing so, the Parliament described him as the Martin Luther King of the Middle East. So thank you, Professor, for emphasizing the Belgian connection. And thank you also, Rector, for agreeing that I'm your proxy here in Ottawa for this ceremony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for these words.
If I may say just one. The problem when you give the word to an ambassador, it's hard to take it back. No, but of course it's not up to me to expand further on the extraordinary career and life of Dr. Abuelaish. But let me just say this: that as a diplomat, I'm really humbled by his achievements. Izzeldin, you are a true ambassador, an ambassador of peace, an ambassador of hope, of reconciliation, of compassion. And our job as diplomats is to build bridges. But here we really have a lot to learn from Professor Abuelaish. He has been building bridges in a region where they are dearly needed, in the Middle East, which is a region that is very close to my heart. I've served also in the Middle East. So indeed, Professor, Thank you very much for that. And one more thing, I just would like to stress one more thing that makes me very happy, is that this ceremony, this occasion adds to the multiple and very rich academic links between Canada and Belgium. The great University of Antwerp is awarding a doctorate to an eminent professor of the University of Toronto, and my wish is that this occasion will also lead to further exchanges and interaction between these two great institutions. So, Professor, you've not only been building bridges between Israel and Palestine, but also between Canada and Belgium, and between Antwerp and Toronto, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And you?
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for these kind words. I think now it's time to move on to another very important part of this evening. It is time to confer officially the honorary degree for general merit on Professor Izzeldin Abuelaish. Rector Herman van Goethem will deliver the laudation before the honorary doctor gives his own word of thanks. But before they begin, let's watch the introduction video together.
De Universiteit Antwerpen geeft dit jaar het eredoctoraat Algemene Verdiensten aan Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish. Izzeldin is een Palestijnse arts die al jaren zich onverdroten inzet op een buitengewone manier voor vrede, verzoening en dialoog in de Joods-Palestijnse kwestie in Israël. Izzeldin groeide op in de Palestijnse bezette gebieden en hij werd arts-chirurg in Israël zelf. Het was buitengewoon dat hij als arts uit de Palestijnse gebieden in een Israëlitisch ziekenhuis werd te werk gesteld. Daardoor alleen al was hij een heel belangrijk rolmodel en een brugfiguur tussen Israël en de bezette gebieden.
Als arts is hij dan actie gaan voeren voor dialoog. Bij de Israëlische inval in 2008 was hij correspondent die op de Israëlische media
verslag uitbracht over hoe het was daar in die bezette gebieden, staande voor die Israëlitische macht die in dat gewapende conflict daar optrad. Terwijl hij rechtstreeks in die uitzending was, zijn er 2 raketten afgevuurd op zijn woning en zijn er 3 van zijn dochters omgekomen. En dat is rechtstreeks uitgezonden op de Israëlitische radio en dat is natuurlijk een buitengewone trigger geweest, waardoor de casus van Izzeldin nog meer in het daglicht kwam. En dan heeft Izzeldin zich helemaal ontplooid tot een bijzonder sterke figuur, want hij verliest 3 van zijn kinderen uit zijn gezin. En je zou dan dat vertalen in haat, in verschrikkelijke boosheid. Dit is iets waar normale mensen zich nooit overheen kunnen zetten. En Izzeldin gaat in die omstandigheden, meer nog dan ooit, preken voor verzoening, dialoog, overheen de politiek, overheen het geweld. En eigenlijk plaatst hij zich daar op het niveau van mensen als Nelson Mandela. Dat doet hij eigenlijk via 3 grote paden. Ten eerste, hij spreekt in de wereld. Hij is een heraut van vrede en verzoening, hoe moeilijk het soms ook is. Tegelijkertijd draagt hij dan ook een boekje uit dat hij geschreven heeft. I Shall Not Hate. Ontroerende pagina's en tegelijkertijd heel sterk. Een vurig pleidooi voor datgene wat hem zo bezielt. Overheen dat leed, vrede, verzoening, dialoog, overleg. Er is meer, hij heeft ook een Foundation Daughters for Life, waarbij hij eigenlijk via funding en samenwerking meisjes uit het Midden-Oosten, die zelf in een behoeftige, wat daarom lastige situatie zitten, wil ondersteunen om universitair hoger onderwijs te volgen, waarbij ze ook die boodschap van empowerment, emancipatie, hoger onderwijs, cultuur willen vertalen in hun eigen regio om daar diezelfde boodschap uit te dragen. En ook de Universiteit Antwerpen wil die foundation steunen. Dat kan je dan doen door zulke studenten ook naar jouw universiteit te laten komen en door verder de boodschap van Izzeldin op die manier uit te dragen. Izzeldin Abuelaish geeft ook een boodschap voor wat zich in Europa, in België, in Vlaanderen voltrekt. Ook hier zien wij een toenemende polarisering die zich onder meer uit in toenemend geweld op minderheidsgroepen. Daar moeten we bezorgd om zijn en dat moeten we tegengaan. Daarom willen wij ook als universiteit, daar staan wij ook voor een multicultureel project waarbij wij dialoog willen in diversiteit en naar elkaar willen luisteren, wat ook onze verschillen zijn. En dan is iemand als Abuelaish ook een voorbeeldfunctie. Die sluit helemaal aan bij de missie en visie van onze universiteit, zoals wij die hier willen uitdragen. Hoe slecht het soms ook gaat, er is altijd hoop. Zelfs in de meest slechte omstandigheden is er altijd hoop. In zo'n situatie wil Izzeldin die boodschap van hoop altijd blijven dragen. Zijn politiek is van onderuit, wat er ook gebeurt, altijd een boodschap van liefde en verzoening brengen. En daarom is Izzeldin ook op het niveau van de hele groten. En daarom is hij ook al meerdere malen genomineerd voor de Nobelprijs van de Vrede. Dit is een van de hele groten in de wereld.
Dr. Abuelaish, dear Izzeldin, your book was once recommended to me by Mahara, the Islamic Student Association at University of Antwerp. It is thanks to these students that we are having this ceremony today. Just as your book moved me deeply, I was once again deeply moved by your lecture now on hatred as a contagious disease. The University of Antwerp hereby grants you the title of Doctor Honoris Causa for the following reasons. By decision of the Executive Board, the University of Antwerp confers upon Professor Izzeldin Abuelaish, founder of the Daughters for Life Foundation and Associate Professor at the Dalai Lama School of Public Health, University of Toronto, the degree of Doctor Honoris Causa for general merit, for his unrelenting efforts to promote peace and for devoting his life to advancing health and education opportunities for young women in the Middle East. Through Daughters for Life, he helps young women develop their potential as powerful voices for equality, leaders of development and agents of change in their community. Dr. Abuelaish is a shining example of strength, hope, and reconciliation. And now we move on to the referral of the diploma to Honorary Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish. Thank you, Ambassador, for handing over the diploma and for taking part on this ceremony, for helping us. Thank you all. Honorary Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish, can I invite you to say maybe a few closing words? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I learned the one who is not thankful to people is not thankful to God. I thank all of you to thank His Excellency the Ambassador to take the lead to organize it. Yourself, the Rector, the Dean of the School of Medicine, the partners from Zonta, and all of those who came to make our day really an inspiring and hopeful one. But always, happiness is incomplete. At this moment, I am moved, thrilled, and I would love if my parents, my mother, my wife, and my loved daughters to come from their graves to see that they are alive and to be proud of me as I am proud of them. Today, I send them the blessings that they are alive and that I didn't forget them and will never forget them. And I believe this opportunity, the most important for me, the recognition is vital, but the most important, this partnership to make a change in others' lives, in particular these 4 young women. And that's the recognition, and that's the biggest award for me, which means a lot to me, because I believe this world can endure and be a just and peaceful one with women's education. And it's time for all of us to come to support, because women, they are not competing or they are not a threat to men. They complement men. So we need to work together, men and women, elders and the children, to take responsibility to make the world the one that we want for us. And my theme always to be. They used to say, behind a successful man, there is a successful woman. It's time to say side by side or behind a successful woman, there is a successful man. And that's the way today we prove it. We need all of us. So I say to all, have faith, have hope, but most important, faith and hope without action, it means nothing. We need to have faith, to have hope, to translate it into action, and to walk the talk. And today, we are walking the talk together to make a change in others' lives. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would like to finish this evening by saying a few words of thanks. Thank you very much to Professor Izzeldin Abuelaish for all the incredible work you are doing, for the extremely powerful masterclass, for accepting our honorary degree, and for your endless belief in love, in peace, in hope, and for your endless actions for making others believe in it too. Many thanks also to His Excellency Johan Verkamme, Belgian Ambassador to Canada. Thank you to Rector Herman van Goeten, Dean Guy Hubens, and the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. Finally, of course, I'd also like to thank you all for joining us this evening. Let's hope that in 2022 we can once again fill our Aula Rector Danis to celebrate our honorary doctors in person. I hope to see you then.
Thank you.